Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together.
Welcome to another conversation. This is Making It Last podcast. I'm your host, Nurin Dealer. It's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. And we're going to be talking about a delicate topic this time around, the whole idea of suicide. Why? More often than not, and I think even with this pandemic, there are individuals who, for whatever reason, are becoming more vocal and sharing sometimes when they have suicidal thoughts. So, we're going to be talking about how do you show up for someone having suicidal thoughts. And joining me in this conversation this time around, we have Roxanne White, who is the Department of Communication Studies at Northern Caribbean University. She's the female Burgundy jacket holder for this school year 2021 to 2022. But most importantly, in this context, she is a mental health advocate. And of course, it is not just about us lay persons speaking about this. We have Dr. Orlean Brown-Earle from Northern Caribbean University, who is a consultant psychologist. Dr. Brown-Earle, though, it's all well and good if I say to my friend, I think you need professional intervention because I see where it can escalate and you can probably, do something else. If it is that the person isn't open to that, how will that help or does that help in any way? Or is it that if we feel that, you need it, we must quote unquote force them to go and get it?
All right. If you recognize that it is serious, that they probably have been cutting the self-harm, or they actually are stacking up the tablets, any evidence that you can find, you need to call somebody in. You need to call somebody in. We have had cases where a lot of the police officers now are trained, and it's about getting them well. So they might be angry with you afterwards, right? But it's getting them in. We have had cases where parents have found the child with the knife in the room or the razor or whatever, and they can't manage, and the therapist is far away, and they call the police, and the police have been trained to work with individuals and get them there. I truly believe it's better to err on the side of caution than to do nothing at all. At least within yourself, you would have tried. However, many times you're not going to see the tablet, you're not going to see the knife, you're not going to see the razor. So it boils down to encouragement to get the person out there to get the help. So it's really a tough call, and so we really want the family members, friends who are really trying to help, to get help, just as Roxanne did, when you are going through the throes of the guilt and you wish you had, because there's so much you can do and no more. And just to add, and want everybody to remember, when someone has a mental health problem, most times you're not going to be able to identify that. All right, so you truly can't identify the mental health problem. You can only encourage and motivate persons to go and get help.
I believe, and Roxanne, if you want to jump in, because you said you pull a blank just now, let me know. I believe, though, that we, and I mean we as in specifically the Jamaican society, I think for whatever reason, Dr. Brown-Earle, we have been socialized or cultured to some extent to believe that if somebody has these thoughts and in some way they express it in a spiritual context, they'll be told you need to pray. And I don't want anybody to think I'm being sacrilegious, that you need to just pray about it and pray it out of your system. Depending on where you are, the setting, they'll be told, so, man, you need to just find something to occupy your time. So what can we do then to change that mindset? Because the reality is that our young people and a lot of people sometimes they harbor these thoughts. And for us to show up, we also need to help to educate the wider society so that we minimize, some of these issues.
So we need to do what you are doing now. We need to talk with people and educate people, and every single chance we get, talk about it. That is, education is the only way we're going to change people's mindset and make them aware of the issues. It's so interesting. You will have someone walking to your office with a child with an obvious physical disability, and the parents are still in denial. Can you just imagine if they look normal and they have a mental health concern? So the more we talk about these issues, the more we say, if you see the person being hopeless or sad or, not wanting to participate again, get some help as quickly as possible. Get somebody who they like or they're comfortable with to come and talk with them. You see, we do know, and the research has shown that being religious reduces the risk. But the problem is not just being religious. The problem is the people around them who are religious. So the person around them who is religious might not want to do it, but that individual might be religious, but also a mental health problem, And so that just complicates things. So we want our people, especially our people who are religious, to understand that the person who wants to hurt or harm themselves, they have a problem. There's a reason for every behavior. And so whether they're going to attempt or they are going to self-harm, we want people to understand that there's something that they're coping with, that it's hard for them to deal with. And we need to get them some help for that.
Okay. Roxanne, I'm looking at your facial expressions and I sense that you want to contribute right here.
I'm laughing because I had this conversation this afternoon with a friend of mine. She was relating a young man that she used to work with in her space who has one of the forms of, I think it's paranoid schizophrenia, or one of those. I don't remember which one she said. And she was relating how his father called and explained to her what was happening. And they had a little plan and a system in place. And one day he encountered a group of persons from a particular church, from a particular denomination, and they started engaging him in a conversation. And at the end of the conversation and throughout their interactions with him afterwards, they threw away his medication, baptized him, told him that he should just keep on praying and whatever. That young man is a mad young man eating out of garbage, walking in Mapen today, right? And I'm not laughing because it's amusing. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because sometimes when I feel saddened about something and I'm not sure how else to respond, that's how I do. Because even my own experience, people see me wearing my burgundy jacket with my pins and all of that. But I've had my experiences where I was the person texting my friends asking, what would you do if I died tomorrow? And the thing about it is, because I'm considered to be a model student, persons have their various perceptions. When I start to say these things, people are saying, "Oh, Emma, you just need to keep yourself busy. How much more things can I add to what I'm currently doing? Why is it not okay for me to express that I am having these challenges?" So what I had to do for myself is stop asking people whether or not Christians are supposed to have mental health issues and all of that, and just get help for myself. And what's been very helpful for my peers is me sharing my experiences. I must confess that sometimes I still feel some amount of shame, because I'm thinking the thought still arises that, you've been doing therapy for a while, you've been advocating for mental health for a while, so there are certain challenges that you shouldn't still have. But the reality is, I still have these, I still have these challenges.
You're
But
human.
I found that sharing, I've had persons message me via WhatsApp or Instagram to say they appreciate me sharing because they now feel like they're not alone. And then you have persons asking me, how do they go about getting a counselor? How do they go about getting therapy? So I continue to do it. I continue to share, even if I don't feel like it, even when I don't want to, because I know that sharing helps somebody else.
A touchy topic, but we're going to just take a short break right now and listen to some of my partners, and then we'll be right back.
Are you struggling to become an effective communicator? Let Noreen Daly, the communications specialist, get you there. Services include communications consultancy, one-on-one coaching, public speaking and debate training, leadership and team building sessions, plus much more. Visit noreendaly.com for more info. Noreen Daly, redefining the way you communicate.
So, the whole idea of a branding strategy sounded so exotic and so fancy to me. But after having several conversations with Neon, I now have a clearer understanding. I am sure of what my identity is, what it is that I want people to see Noreen Daly as. Thanks, Neon. Thanks, Splint. Visit them at wearesplint.com.
Are you looking for one-of-a-kind products customized to suit your needs? Then shop at Trending Things, the place where customization is always an option. From personalized gifts to apparel, accessories, drinkware, and home decor, you name it, we make it. Get your favorite designs on any item for party favors, weddings, graduations, or any special occasion, all at affordable prices. What are you waiting for? Visit our website at trendingthings.com to order your trendy item today. Trending Things, bringing creativity to the things you love.
I had a student who died pretty suddenly on me, a mature student with a family. But I went to the counseling center to get help because I was like, how could this happen? This is one of my top students, bright, doing well. She had a particular health concern, but she wasn't supposed to die in my estimation. And the way it jarred me, I had to go and seek help. And so we need people to understand that it's okay to seek help. Help heals. And guess what? It takes time to heal from whatever situation you've had in your life, whatever relationship breakup, whatever anxiety, whatever panic attack you had. It takes time to heal because there's a reason for every behavior. And so therapy helps you to identify the reason and to work with it as best as you can. Many people go to therapy, many medical doctors, journalists, researchers, mothers, homemakers, okay, carpenters. People go because they want to work on healing and to be made whole. And depending on what's happened to you, that will take from a few weeks to a few years. So we want people to understand that. And I'm so proud of you, Roxanne, for sharing that, especially with your age and the population that you currently work largely with. Because sometimes we compare ourselves and we want to be at a certain level, not understanding that everybody had to grow to get somewhere. And thumbs up to you, and I really appreciate this.
There, as we're wrapping up, there is a concern though, Dr. Brown-Earle, and I've had it expressed by a friend just recently, because she had a bad experience with a counselor before when she needed to work through some issues. I'm not sure if suicide was one of them, but because it has come up and I'm now saying, no, you really need the help. She's been very reluctant because of a bad experience where she shared with a counselor and her private information, the counselor shared, I believe, with her parent. Now, for somebody who's listening and might be somewhat reluctant in terms of reaching out and getting that help because they believe and resorting to the vernacular for this, then business are go out a road. What would be your response to that?
All right. So we want to say to everybody, there, sadly, sometimes there are bad apples in the bunch. Okay. And that is why I'm so happy that now we have licensure in Jamaica. Those persons can be reported. And what we will do is that we will ensure that individuals get the best help. But we don't want, because of one person's inappropriate or unethical behavior, you don't seek help. So we really want to encourage persons, just like when you go for a second opinion or a second checkup from the medical practitioner, the same way. Reach out again to someone. Have someone who you trust make a recommendation for another person. But don't allow one person's bad situation to stop you from living a life of hope.
Okay. Roxanne?
In a way, there are some things that are situational as well, because I'm thinking, I know for a fact of instances where counselors have shared private information that they really should have been kept to themselves. But I'm also aware of cases where a particular bit of information is necessary for the parents to know, depending on the age of the person, and depending on what the situation is. So there's kind of like a fine line where that is concerned as well, because especially if it's the case of self-harming. I feel, and I may be wrong, and I concede if I'm wrong.
You're right.
I feel that there are instances where the counselor may need to engage the parent so that the parent may be aware that they need to be looking out for certain types of behaviors, certain signs, so that the parent can know if and when they need to reach out to the counselor or some other professional. So I think there's that little fine line. But even with that, the person, if one counselor doesn't fit, there are other counselors, just as though you have many doctors. You find one that works for you, because the counselor that I started out with is not the counselor I now have. I had to go through a couple of counselors before I found one that fit, that I've been working with for a number of years, but now I'm to find the perfect counselor for them right off the bat. So as you said before, Dr. Earle, get a second opinion, maybe even a third opinion if you need to, before you throw out the idea of getting help.
Okay. So we've been talking about how do you show up for someone having suicidal thoughts. A lot has been said. If there was only one idea or two ideas that you'd want to leave with our audience, Dr. Brown-Earle and Roxanne, what would that idea or those two ideas be?
And I just want to say something quickly before I say that. Roxanne is correct. Every therapist, once the client has shown intent to harm themselves or others, we must report it, or we must guide them to professional support services. If they're under 18, the caregivers must be notified. The one thing I would want to leave is that I want everyone to remember that you can only help a person so much. You can only give what you have. The more information you have about a topic, that especially suicide that we're talking about today, is the more you can help someone. And secondly, remember that persons might have mental health problems that you have no idea about or you have no control for. So do your best and help the person with what we've recommended, but remember, in doing your best, seek help if afterwards you feel guilty, because you will need therapy as well to cope with the loss if it occurs.
Okay. Roxanne.
In addition to what Dr. Brown-Earle said, I would add two things. One, pay attention. Many times we get so wrapped up in what is happening to us, that we don't pay attention to what is happening to our friends. And outside of the fact that persons can mask things, sometimes there are some things that if we just paused for a moment and took our eyes off ourselves, we'd be able to see. And I'd say get some support for yourself because the reality is when you have a friend or a family member who is constantly threatening to self-harm or actually doing it, it takes a toll on you more than you probably realize. So it's important for you to get some support for yourself so you can process things, especially if you're not able to have conversations with your loved one who is self-harming or thinking about it.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing. This is an important topic, which I am sure we could talk about some more. We probably should at a later date because I think there's so many other aspects that we could talk about. Because one of the things, Dr. Brown-Earle, that I think I will ask you to come back and speak up is just some more of those warning signs. Because as Roxanne said, we just really need to pay attention because I think more often than not, we're all caught up in our own stuff that we're not paying attention to some of the people around us and even when they're harboring these thoughts and not creating a safe space so some of them can even express that these are some of the thoughts that they're harboring. This was Making It Last podcast. I'm your host, Noreen Dealer. It's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. Until next time.
Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.